Happy spooky season. Okay, first of all, hello. Have not done a video in a hot fucking minute. Can you tell? Oh my god, have you missed me? I've missed you. Hello, sinners, and hail Sappho. It's your hostess with the mostest, Narcissa Deville, and happy spooky season, y'all. That's how you know you're a Texan. You say y'all. These sleeves are it's too hot for sleeves, but you know what? We're gonna make it work. Because this, I don't know if you can see it, but this is like this amazing gothic outfit that I've got. Oh, I love it. I'm obsessed. I haven't worn this in forever. It's a little snug, but you know what? I like it. Oh, it's giving me like Morticia Addams if she was wearing a cocktail dress. So this video is going to be completely different from anything I've done. It is still going to be a makeup chat, but it's going to be more of a makeup reaction. And basically what this is I'm going to be taking you down a little journey into my past, okay? It's not a reaction to my old videos, don't worry, because that's a little overplayed. And obviously if you've seen the title, you know that's not what this is. But this is kind of like a spooky reaction to something that I grew up with. I feel like I could explain who Art Bell is, or I could just let the show speak for itself. The show ran from the early 90s to the mid 2000s. I think the last time I heard it was probably 20 years ago when I was like 13. So it's been a long, long time since I've listened to this program. This is totally unrelated to anything, but I think it's very interesting. My father is who introduced me to Art Bell, so I was kind of like a quasi fan through him. Art Bell lived in Pahrump, we lived in Vegas. My father died February of 2018 of COPD complications. Art Bell died April 2018 of COPD complications. Like, it's like totally unrelated, but it is kind of a weird coincidence. He obviously hadn't been doing his show for a long, long time. I think maybe in like 2010, but maybe before then, he gave it up to George Norrie, who's like the current host. I remember my father did not like him, so I've never listened to his version of the show. I've only listened to Art Bell's version, so that's what we're going to be listening to. And in particular, for a lot of obvious reasons, because of like who I am, hi, hello, devil horns, I'm a huge fan. I want to particularly listen to, there is one commentator maybe that was consistently on Art Bell's program in the early 90s. The first interview was in 1996 with the author and Jesuit priest who is also deceased at this point, Father Malachi Martin. And I'll let Art introduce him. I'm kind of scared. I hope I don't get distracted and like stop doing my makeup, but I have a feeling this is going to be like, girl, wild.
Dr. Malachi Martin, ex-Jesuit, former exorcist, and one-time advisor to 3 popes.
That's the thing I love.
Is currently a best-selling author.
I love that.
As a premier investigator of clandestine politics and unlikely alliances of popes and cardinals, his novels offer rare insights into the men who guide nearly 1 billion people in faith and broker the destinies of countries and continents. As a member of the Vatican Intelligence Network,
I love that the Vatican has like a CIA.
Under Pope John the 23rd, Martin helped extend the church into Iron Curtain countries. In 1964, concerned about the corrupting influences of power, Martin was released from his vows of poverty and obedience after 25 years as a Jesuit.
Kind of was not a priest.
He left Rome
at this point.
for New York, where he did odd jobs until a Guggenheim Fellowship enabled him to write his first bestseller, Hostage to the Devil.
I've read part of that.
It was followed by The Final Conclave,
it's a novel.
Vatican, 3 popes, and the Cardinal, The Keys of This Blood, The Jesuits, and apparently many others. He's a very prolific author.
House.
To give you some idea of how he is reviewed, Forbes magazine said, "No spiritual journey is complete without a Vatican page-turner by Malachi Martin."
That's not a word you hear often.
Sacramento Bee said, "It is to Martin's credit that his real
1996,
life fictional cardinals have flesh, blood, and bone, sometimes the heart of a South Chicago ward healer." The Dallas Morning News said, "In biblical times, they would have called him a prophet." Publishers Weekly said it is impossible not to be impressed with Martin's profound knowledge of men, issues, and history.
I'll be the judge of that.
I could go on and on and on and on. For 30 years...
Okay, girl, let's get to the...
So, from New York City, Staying up late. Here is Dr. Malachi Martin. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Well, good morning there, Art. How are you?
Oh, I am very well, and I am so honored to have you here.
He's English.
No, I'm really privileged
English.
to be talking on this vast network.
Kind of sounds like my old hormone doctor.
Universal.
It really is universal now. It's amazing.
I heard you describe it from north to south to east to west.
Oh, yes. Covers a lot of territory. I'm not, my background, doctor, is not Catholicism. I'm not Catholic. My wife is. Mm-hmm. Many years ago, the movie The Exorcist came out.
Yeah. One of my favorites.
It was the first of its kind, really. It scared the hell out of me. Be honest with you. And as no movie, even with all their horrible little monsters, ever has since. And I'm not sure why.
Funny? Isn't that funny? Isn't that interesting? I find that very curious. I really do. Even more than any of the Dracula and the Frankenstein films.
Even more than the movies with Alien, where monsters are popping out of people's bellies and all sorts of horrible things.
Yes.
And I think the reason is because I viewed The Exorcist as real.
Yes, I think so. And it did touch on a chord, the existence of demons, which could, on occasion, inhabit the body of some human being. I think that might be the element. It was set also, that particular picture was set in Washington, real lifetime Washington, you know, and you had real live-looking characters undergoing these horrible contortions and distortions. So I suppose it did. The fact is, Art, that at the back of our consciousness, at least in, I was going to say in the West, but then I know it's the same in India, it's the same in China, it's the same in Japan,
what is with my tongue?
And in Latin America. At the back of our consciousness, there's always a fear of the evil one.
Yes. Well, there may be a reason for that. The evil one. Now, let me start there by asking you, is there a difference between possession by the devil and possession by a demon?
Yes, there is. The mythology or the legend or
I do like
the
that he calls
or
it
the teaching,
mythology.
whichever you want to regard it as, it holds that there is a major evil spirit called Lucifer. And there is another one called Satan.
Yeah, so, talking about them as two different people, love that.
Accompanied by, or they are among, many, many smaller demons. And these do attack and possess human beings in their will and their intellect.
I know so many people who'd be like,
that's the general sort of picture you get from books and studies and doctrine and teaching about the devil and about evil. And I think, what I was saying was that I think at the edge of our consciousness there's always the fear that perhaps indeed
comparing
there is
the
such
devil
a thing.
to evil.
We don't believe it. We Catholics do hold it, and Christians in general do hold it, but there's a consciousness, there's some evil spirit at work. It could be in our world, and we're afraid of it. There is the possibility of being possessed, of one's body being dominated by such an evil spirit and used for nefarious ends.
I can't.
Doctor, the devil, is the devil a fallen angel? Is that correct?
That's the idea. They are all fallen angels. The idea is that once upon a time, 1/3 of the angels of God revolted against him and were condemned to hell and became demons.
What was the purpose of that rebellion, Doctor?
The purpose of the rebellion was simply the ambition of one spirit, Lucifer, the son of the dawn, that's what his name means, the light bearer or the son of the dawn, who said, I will not serve. I will be equal to God. And he was opposed by one spirit who said, who is like unto God? And that's the name of Michael, Mikael, who is like unto God.
That bitch.
And there was this, supposedly, this huge battle between the spirits, and the demons lost. And Michael and those fighting for God
was
won.
A fair fight, though.
And forever, the fallen angels, those who rebelled, are condemned to hell and condemned to to be evil and to promote evil amongst human beings.
I don't know about all that.
How do we, human beings, fit into the picture? It's almost as though the war is over human beings.
You know, this is the thing that always gets me, right? Is like, people always, and you know, I went to Catholic school, so I get it. But like, you kind of can't hold that, on the one hand, God created everything and everyone and already knew what they were going to do. So he already knew that Lucifer was going to rebel, but he still did it, so he's the bad guy because he did what everyone knew he was going to do. I don't know how fair that is, and I know that's like not a hot take at all, but like, it just doesn't seem fair, girl. But anyway, let's get back into this.
Yes, it is over human beings. The teaching is that once upon a time God envisaged the world inhabited by men and women and served by angels. But when Lucifer and Satan and the other demons, then angels, were asked to collaborate and cooperate and serve human beings, especially one particular human being who would be God, namely Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, they said no.
Girl, no.
We are angels. We are superior to these material beings. We haven't got their limitations, and we don't die, and we haven't got material bodies. We are pure spirits. So they were destined originally to serve human beings, and they refused.
I wouldn't want to serve human beings either, girl.
How old were you when you became a priest?
I was 33.
33.
Oh, the age I am now.
There's
still time.
And when did you first encounter, as a young priest, how did you encounter anybody who was possessed? I know you have done, how many exorcisms have you done?
I've done thousands of minor exorcisms and about a couple of hundred major ones. Major ones in duration and in intensity are difficult, very difficult, and they're far fewer than the thousands of exorcisms you do every year. Exorcisms against various ailments like...
See, this is where he loses me.
For instance, persecution complex, where you're really being obsessed by a devil or a demon, or alcoholism, or is the human ills. The list is enormous. Now, I first of all came across it.
See, this is the thing. This is where you lose me, right? Because I just kind of feel like saying addiction is a demon is a really bad take, is what I'm going to say. It's a really, and I know it's something that people believe, and it's interesting hearing it from a Catholic, because I think it's usually a certain type of like Christian denomination that believes in that sort of thing. But it's just a really bad take. Excuse my cat who's deciding to play over in that direction and make a lot of noise. Like, I don't know. To me, saying alcoholism is a demon is just the worst type of take. Because it's also the sort of take that leads to, like, you know, being gay is a demon. Like, it's very... It's very that, and I'm just, like, not here for that. So let's skip around a little bit.
Possessions are by demons.
That's right, they are.
You think Lucifer doesn't have better things to do?
Is there now, or is there going to be, an Antichrist?
Oh, here we go. Me.
Whether there is now is a question. There is going to be an Antichrist, and I think the best thing we can do is talk about his public appearance.
Why gotta be a he?
A young man, say 30-something, 40-something, a young woman, will come and say, look, when I was in college, when I was studying, when I took up residence as a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it was, I made a pact with the devil. I needed money.
Listen, I've needed money. I've tried.
And I asked him to help me, and he did, but he took over my will and my mind. Now I want to get rid of it. How do I get rid of it?
Girl.
Like, if...
To you are those who are sort of in the middle of a giant battle.
This is fun.
Are there cases in which a possession is not obvious?
Yes,
I would imagine there are many where the spirit has simply won and is in firm control. I would think that the people who come to you are those who are sort of in the middle of a giant battle.
That's right. when you find somebody, the typical things of somebody throwing themselves on the ground or cursing and spitting and protesting and
Yes.
defecating, urinating, and all sorts of protest. What they're doing is protesting, saying, help me,
Yes.
help me. The perfectly possessed, we call them the perfectly possessed, are those that are completely at peace. And I've known several of the perfectly possessed, and I avoid them like the pest. And you know them only by almost accidental means. Sometimes they're perfectly normal, by the way, and they've got great business property. They're married, they have children and wives, and they put down responsible jobs. There's nothing wrong there. Now and again, just now and again, it's as it were, a veil is drawn aside, and you see somebody you don't know at all. You just don't know this person, this man, this woman. And there's a completely alien look, a completely alien attitude, and they breathe alienation. And you know then, if you have a nose for it, you know then that they're perfectly possessed and there's nothing to be done about it. The first man I knew like that was called Beedham, John Beedham. And it was a frightening experience because I had known him for years.
In other words, their pact, their deal, they are at peace with and comfortable with their deal.
Right. That's
Yeah,
right.
thank
They
you.
have passed through the usual Satanist rituals too. The three Satanist rituals: the power of inflicting pain, the power of hating,
Now this I don't get.
and the power of burning fire.
Listen, I love a good fire. I can be a hateful bitch. Inflicting pain, I don't know about all that. I've never experienced that. And no Luciferian or Satanist that I know has done that. So, like, I don't know where he's getting this from. But, like, whatever, Diva. I still think the rest of it is interesting.
Fire is part of the Satanist
We love
and the
fire.
Luciferian development.
I would say
They
I don't
passed
remember
all
hearing the
those
word
with flying
Luciferian
colours.
before this interview.
I am denominationally speaking more of the Protestant tradition, and I would ask you, can a non-Catholic, without the Pope's authorization, do exorcism?
I've never come across one yet.
Okay.
But it may
That's
be.
very
but
sus. Like,
I've never
only
come
we
across
can
it
do
yet.
this.
They-
We're very
they come to
special.
us.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I broke it.
I have a question. My sister-in-law that lives with us is,
Yes.
and I
This is
feel
already
that
problematic.
sometimes what I see coming out of her is
Yes.
like a demonic thing. What happens is, if you ask her who her friend is, and
Yes.
you ask her in a certain way, she'll say, well, my friend is Satan of the Black Mountain.
Mm.
And if my daughter knows how to get her going and just get crazy, and I just wonder sometimes if,
Has she always been like this?
well, not from the start of my marriage to my husband. See, he told me, he said she's evil, and
Well,
she has
she-
evil ways about her.
Has she always been?
As
We
far
don't
as
use
yes,
that word.
as far as he knows, she was born that way, and she's got like the mentality of a 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the doctors have said. Now, I've seen her as normal as you and I. I mean, I don't know how you are, but I mean...
Yeah, you can presume we're normal.
Yeah.
But I
Pardon
mean,
myself.
my daughter pretends to vomit, and she'll just go off.
Yes,
And I'll
yes.
tell her, I'll say, will you stop? Just sit there and stay calm. Ignore her.
I just find it so see, this is the problem, right? And I realize this is a almost 30-year-old interview. Besides the language, fine. That you can't control how people talk on the radio. Nobody corrected it, fine. Well, not fine. My problem primarily with this is this kind of shit further stigmatizes people, right? Mental illness is already stigmatized a lot. Physical disabilities, mental disabilities, all these things are already stigmatized to hell. No pun intended. So doing this whole thing where we're saying like this person with a mental disability is evil because she answers things in a certain way that you find questionable, I just think it's, first of all, bad. It's bad faith, literally, but it's also just like, what are we doing here, right? Like, how are we really, really doing this? How are we literally going to sit here and say that this person who happens to have a mental disability is somehow, because they answer things that you think are evil, and like her own brother thinks she's evil, like, that's really fucked up. To me, that is like 10 kinds of fucked up. Please get that person out of there. I mean, 30 years ago, who knows if any of these people are still alive, to be honest, because a lot can change in 30 years. But it's just like, it's the further stigmatization and demonization, literally, of people with disabilities, and it's just not okay. And I actually didn't, like I said, I haven't listened to this in like 20 years, so I did not know this was coming. And I have to say, it's like, it's so like, not even, it's beyond cringe. It's so like, just disgusting.
Doctor, it brings up an awfully good question. A child, is that an easier target for possession?
No.
No.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay.
There has to be collaboration of the will for possession.
So something just occurred to me. I think it's so interesting that in this interview, Father Martin says there has to be a collaboration of the wills in order for an exorcism to happen. And I'm just like, but didn't you just say, like, the whole thing with The Exorcist was based on a true story, it was based on a young man? It's like, how is there a collaboration of the wills? And you also just said that anytime the whole thing about an exorcism with someone fighting it is that they don't want this to happen. Like, obviously, everything that you see in a movie like The Exorcist, where she's, like, spitting and vomiting and begging for help, like, that is her fighting against it. So how can there be a collaboration of the wills in order for someone to get possessed in the first place if, obviously, they're fighting against it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense to anyone else, or am I just, like, overthinking this clearly fake thing?
Doctor, I wonder how many people in mental institutions all across this country, instead of being mentally ill, may be possessed.
I've only gone through, with a psychiatrist, I've only gone through 2 mental institutions, let's call them that.
Yes, sir.
And over 50% are obviously possessed.
See, again, I think suggesting that 50% of people in mental institutions are actually possessed is, let's just call it what it is. It's problematic. I mean, I don't think I have to tell you that. It's again, it is the stigmatization of mental illness. It is the stigmatization of people who are disabled. And it doesn't surprise me at all. And that is kind of the danger of like certain religious fundamentalism, let's put it that way, that this belief that inherently you must be, actually possessed if you have a mental illness or a mental disability. I don't like it. I don't care for that. So it's a stigmatization. It harms a lot of people. And I think it needs to be talked about because it is very harmful to real, actual people.
What are being called extraterrestrial beings and their relationship, if any, with demons, angels, and the quickening process.
The only comment I would make is that some of the so-called or so-defined sightings of extraterrestrials sounds like demonic activity, but I have never examined the thing closely and scientifically or professionally, so I don't know.
So funny.
But some of it sounds very
but
like
I've heard
demonic
people
activity
say that.
and nothing to do with extraterrestrial beings.
I don't think that's new.
If such things exist.
Do you rule out the possibility of extraterrestrial beings?
No, I do not. We just don't know.
Would the existence of them in any way shake your faith?
No, it would not. Not the slightest way. It would expand my consciousness.
First-time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Malachi Martin. Hi.
Hello, Dr. Martin.
Yes.
It's about 5 years ago, I had in a weak moment,
yes.
I had a suicide attempt.
Yes.
It seemed like there were forces in the house that saved me,
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Where
Not
are
gonna-
you, sir?
I'm in Vancouver.
Vancouver, Canada.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, about 6 months before that, we were doing a bunch of, not Ouija, but the same sort of thing in the
Yes.
house.
The
Yes.
fuck is the same sort of
And
thing?
it seemed as though there were forces,
Yes.
and it seemed as though I was saved. I've had nothing but bad luck since this time. Can you tell me,
Well, if you have dabbled in the Ouija board seriously, and if you've dabbled in any, it's occult, there's no doubt about that, you're dealing with occult forces, then you may have some attachments to you that you don't like, spiritual attachments.
Here's my question, okay? What is the odds that you would be willing to say, hey, I played with this Ouija board. I also have mental health issues that caused me to, attempt to take my own life, but something saved me. You're not willing to entertain the possibility that it's whatever you let in through the Ouija board or whatever occult forces? Now, it has to be something Christian. Like, I don't know. It just strikes me as very odd. And again, I think the implication here is that the reason this person tried to take their life is because something is like, haunting them or whatever. Or like a spirit is haunting them or something like that. And this is what I'm saying, you guys. I don't like the implications of that. I don't like the idea that somebody's mental health is related to like demons and shit like that. I just think it's not how we should view the world, you know what I mean? And I know there's people who think that. I know there are people who think that. Still to this day, nothing has changed. Well, a lot of things have gotten worse in 30 years, but nothing has changed in 30 years as far as that's concerned. But the problem I have with it is just like, it feels wrong to me to even entertain the idea that the reason someone who, there's obviously a lot he's not going to say on radio. There's a lot, Father Martin is not a therapist. So there's a lot that you're not going to say. There's a lot you just can't say, don't want to say, whatever causes, because there's so many factors. I'm not a therapist. But this idea of like, oh, it's a demon obsessing me or following me or whatever, I just think that's so wrong. I think it's so wrong. I think it is the wrong message to send. And even if you believe or don't believe in demons or whatever, I just feel like putting that as like the message of like, this is why people have, poor mental health. This is why people have, ideations, whatever. I just find that to be so, it's wrong. It's so wrong to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't agree with that. I'm so sorry. Not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I don't agree with that. I think that's very, very wrong to put on someone. But let's get into, obviously the person called in, so they have some belief. So it's like, unfortunately, I think your belief systems do play into how you view a certain situation. And hey, there may be people with mental health issues who do believe that that's the reason why. And I think that's unfortunate, and I don't think that helps them at all, but that's not going to change how they feel about it. And I don't want to dismiss anyone's religion out of hand.
In your spirit, and you want to get rid of them.
yes.
And you want to get a good priest who can get rid of them for you. It's very hard to get rid of them yourself. But a good priest can do that.
I'm not a Catholic or...
That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. You're a human being.
Wow.
All right.
You're redeemed by Christ, whether you like it or not.
I
Whether
do
you
not.
believe it or not.
So seek proper help.
That's right.
Doctor, the nature of suicide.
Yes.
What happens to a soul?
It's called Satan's eighth sacrament. There are 7 satanic sacraments, apparently, but the suicide is the eighth one. What happens is briefly this, that by my own hand, I cut myself off from leading a life according to God's will, who is the master of life and of death. And by doing that, I violate a fundamental commandment of His, which is do not kill yourself. It's a fundamental law in my nature. And I thereby enter the gray area where I can never see the light again. I can never be with God. I can never have happiness. And I suffer the torment of being separated from the one thing that would have made me happy, would have made me, beatified me forever. God and His beauty and His truth and His heaven.
What about those people that suffer physical maladies that are terminal and horrible and simply...
I know.
And simply want out. And I've thought about this and talked about it on the radio as a talk host over many years, and my position was always sort of, whose life is it anyway? I'll be in control of my own life.
Yeah.
Nobody will tell me what to do. My wife told me, Doctor, don't do it. Even if you're suffering, you are meant to go through this, and if you don't go through it, something terrible is going to happen.
I don't like that.
And those words have rung in my ears for years.
I know, and they ring in my ears now that you've said them, and I won't forget them. They've been said to me on other occasions by other people for other reasons, for the same reasons. I don't know. I really don't know, Art, in the whole of human history that I have read and talked about and inquired into, I don't know of any explanation justifying human suffering except the sufferings of Jesus Christ on His cross. If I can identify with His sufferings, in spite of my cancer, in spite of my arthritis, in spite of my AIDS, if I have these things, if I can identify with His sufferings, I can merit a greater place in heaven.
No. Sorry. No. Sorry. Next. Absolutely not. Like, listen, I'm not advocating for people to end their own life by any means. If your statement is, well, if you suffer like Jesus did, and if you look at it that way, that you're suffering like Jesus did, then it's fine. You can go through it and have a better place in heaven. Now, I was under the impression, forgive me my ignorance, it's been a while since I've read the Bible, but I did. And I was under the impression the whole point of Jesus' suffering was so that the rest of us didn't have to. Now you're telling me that people who are suffering through cancer or AIDS, which, girl, I don't even have time to bring up that one, should view their suffering as, well, Jesus went through this, so that makes it okay. Like, are we really doing this right now? Like, girl, I'm sorry. That is next level fucked up as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's toxic. That is some toxic ass shit. And to say, oh, you'll get a better place in heaven. First of all, that assumes that person is getting into heaven in general. And also, like, you're telling people it's okay or it's good that you're suffering because you potentially can get into heaven. Like, I don't agree with that. Like, I understand that, like, being human, things happen. But I just don't know if telling people, hey, especially if you consider, like, something is, very devastating as, like, AIDS and HIV, especially in 1997, or 1996, excuse me. Like, I don't think telling people, well, yeah, you're suffering and it's awful, but just view your suffering as Christ-like, and that'll make it better. And you'll get a better place in heaven. Like, I'm not on board with this, you guys. I'm really not. And again, I guess I wasn't ever going to be. And this is shit people believe. And it's just like,
It's the complete wrong takeaway that you should have from this. The whole point, as I understood it from being in Catholic school, the whole point of the suffering of the Son of God was that so humans didn't have to. And we chose suffering anyway, and we talk about suffering as if it's noble. And, like, that is the problem. Because there is this constant puritanical belief that there is nobility in suffering. And there's not. I'm so sorry. There just is not. There is no nobility in suffering. Take your fucking medication. You know what I mean? Like, there's just this idea, and I've been guilty of it too, where you do that thing where you're like, well, you know, you have a headache, I guess I don't have to take whatever. No, girl, take the fucking aspirin. There's no nobility in suffering. You don't have to suffer. Like, this idea that somehow you are more morally, this idea that you are somehow more morally superior or more morally, I don't even fucking know, better because you've suffered is so toxic. And I just, you know, and it's unquestioned, and I get it. Like I said, you know, I do feel like this, you know, Art Bell as a radio host definitely kind of went with the bit, let's say. But it's so unquestioned to not even say, hey, you know, maybe we should have a discussion about this idea that, like, suffering is a good thing. But obviously, you know, he was married to a Catholic, so she obviously already believed that, and so she's going to push that on her husband. I don't know. I can't get into that. I really can't. I can't get into this contour either, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm not about that. I'm sorry. There is nothing morally superior about suffering. And again, even if, you know, everything Catholics say is true, even if heaven is real, there's no guarantee you're getting in. There's 1,000,001 reasons you may not get into heaven. So this idea that you're morally obligated to suffer for the possibility that you will get into heaven, maybe, if you do enough good things right, there is no guarantee. Like, I just, I can't get down with that.
I can merit a greater closeness of Lucifer.
Oh, what?
Lucifer in particular, not so much Satan.
What about Lucifer? Sorry, wait, hold on.
And I want to stay with the devils. I know people, that's ethic, there's no moral, there's no rule at all.
No, I believe that as well. I believe that as well, but it is real, isn't it?
Oh, gee whiz. It's real.
What?
No, that's latent in human beings. Mention that once. That middle plateau is the plateau on which evil spirits work. And they use every paranormal power that they can, that's latent in human beings and can be evinced, can be used. And it's very dangerous and volatile. It's the nitroglycerin of the soul. You can blow it up. And it's a very dangerous thing because you let loose something amongst human beings as a group that's destructive in the extreme and completely immoral. There's no ethic, there's no moral, there's no rule at all.
No, I believe that as well. I believe that as well, but it is real, isn't it?
Oh, gee whiz. It's real. That's the difficulty about it. It is real. And I know people who teach it.
So do I.
Yeah. But not for me. Thank you very much. I'm a coward. I run. I really do, Art. I have nothing to do with it. And I want to stay with the devils over the angels.
You know, circling back, again, I can't get it out of my mind. There are these people who have comfortably made a deal and are living with this deal.
Oh, yes, and they expect to go home to Satan.
Oh, yes. Are there more and more of these people? You see them, you know them?
I do expect to go home to Satan, thank you.
There are more and more appearing to be there, anyway. And it's very hard to get away from the impression that there are more disciples than there ever were before of Lucifer. Lucifer in particular, not so much Satan. Lucifer.
We're drawing a lot of serious comments, and I'm going to read this to you and get your reaction.
Sure.
Dr. Martin, I've recently been fighting.
Yes.
I was at a point where I gave up on life because of my sexuality.
Yes.
I'm gay. I've known that for a long time and have never wanted to be that way.
Yes.
I once gave up and came close to suicide and tried to invite forces toward me that would help me attain the goal.
Yes.
Now, however, I don't want to die, but I find myself being compelled to this route very often. I feel something is pulling me to kill myself. How do I deal with it? I know the Catholic Church condemns homosexuality, but am I really as evil as these forces that are driving me to kill myself? How do I overcome it?
The answer is that you are not as evil as these forces would have you believe. And the persuasion that you...
Okay. So this one's tough, right? Because, and I'm going to take this out. This one is tough because, I mean, God, this was 30 years ago. This was such a different world. And I appreciate that he is saying, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I appreciate that he's saying, at least in part, like, you're not as evil as, you know, the assholes in your head tell you you are. That's a great thing. I do feel, and again, I'm going to say this again, mental illness, whatever it is, depression, ideation, somebody who is desperate, especially, you know, as a queer person. Look, I understand the struggles of coming out. As someone who was once Catholic, I know the struggles of coming out. I know the struggles of trying to, you know, deal with your religious beliefs as someone who is, you know, also queer. I know what that's like. And it's not an easy thing to balance at all. In fact, I would venture to guess it's probably one of the most difficult things that you can balance, right? Because you're trying to balance this reality of yourself, which is that you are queer, you have same-sex attraction, and you're also trying to balance the reality of a spiritual belief that you were brought up into and that maybe you've retained for one reason or another. It's very difficult to change religions. I understand that. I've done it twice, but it's still not easy. And so it's a balancing act, right? You're trying to figure out, how do I balance my spiritual beliefs about myself with the reality of myself? That is not something that is easy to do. And I don't think that it's something that, it's something that's a struggle for some people, especially if you're very, very entrenched in your spirituality. And so, you know, my heart breaks for this person. Really, really does. Now, I strongly disagree with the idea that because they, you know, prayed for someone to help themselves or whatever, that now they're possessed by some spirit that wants to constantly drag them towards death. But I do think it's one of those things that if you already have these suicidal ideations, they don't just go away without therapy. And even with therapy, they're not just going to go away. Sometimes that is something that you're dealing with for a very long time. And if you're still not dealing with the reality of your sexuality, which is that you are attracted to, you know, this person's a man, you're attracted to men. If you're not dealing with that, and you're already have these like self-loathing tendencies, yeah, of course you're gonna, and you already believe in the Christian Catholic dogma, you're maybe more inclined to believe that that is something that is, you know, some demon or spirit trying to drag you into, you know. But I know plenty of people who are, you know, occult inclined, or, you know, who are not against demons or Satan or whatever, who are not idol and who are not, you know, any of these things. And it has nothing to do with that, because that has nothing to do with, you know, what you're feeling. If you're someone who is going through a terrible mental health crisis, and that's what this is, it has nothing to do with, you know, Satan or demons or spirits, and it has everything to do with, you know, you're just in a terrible mental health crisis, and you need to see someone, and you need to be able to come out to yourself and say it's okay. I would like to believe, I mean, obviously we have seen in this interview that that's probably not going to be the case. I would like to believe that Father Martin would be a little more charitable and say something like, you know, obviously he said you're not as bad as maybe the, you know, the self-loathing tendencies would like you to believe. But at the same time, it's also not bad to be queer. I would love to hear that. Again, it's 1996. This is a Catholic priest. I'm not super hopeful, okay? I don't even know if I'm going to listen to the end of it. You know, this was supposed to be like a fun little spooky thing, and this has kind of taken a dark turn in a lot of ways, because like I wanted this to be like, ooh, paranormal, spooky, demons, and I feel like this has kind of taken a turn. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. Obviously, this is not going to be future content unless people like it. Then I will react to other strange interviews like this and see how people react to it. But this really fucking depressed me, actually. Happy Halloween, I guess. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe, comment down below, tell me your thoughts on this, tell me if you'd want to see more of this, tell me if you've ever listened to this radio show, or even if you know anything about these types of shows, or like what your thoughts are, because this was a very interesting one for me. I don't know how to feel about this still. Till next time, stay devilish, and see you 2 Tuesdays from now. I don't know how to do that. Next Tuesday in 2 weeks. Whatever. I've got a lot going on, girl.